where not just women are in danger, but all marginalized people, where being uniquely different right now might truly be considered a crime. It seems as though we had all slipped into a false sense of comfort, that justice would prevail and that good would win in the end. Well, good did not win this election, but good will win in the end. So what today means is that we are far from the end. Today marks the beginning of our story. The revolution starts here. The fight for the right to be free, to be who we are, to be equal. Let's march together through this darkness, and with each step, know that we are not afraid. That we are not alone. That we will not back down. That there is power in our unity, and that no opposing force stands a chance in the face of true solidarity. And to our detractors that insist that this march will never add up to anything,
Boston Red here with Friday Java, a weekly magazine of political theory, polling, and commentary. It is part of the history called people that make up this fascinating journey. We are part of the Obama network. For that, we make no apologies. What we pledge to do is give you the facts on a bridge to history. What body politics is, the most up-to-date theories of political science and psephology. Stay tuned for this incredible ride. Boston Red, peace out.
From WBRN Radio, traveling on the Boston Red Network, Friday Java on the 10th of January. We're here in 2020, and we started this, at least formally, on Internet radio, one part of Internet radio. We actually started with Jerry Pippa's network before that in the late 90s and through the 2000s. But nonetheless, we've been on Blog Talk and various other networks since 2008, so that basically means that we have been around here, 2008, 12 years now. And close to 2 million people have visited us over the 12-year period. And in that machination, I was talking with another content producer that is taking a little bit of a hiatus. One of the things that's happened several times, the metrics that are used to count the number of people that visit the sites have changed many times. And the latest change has not favored independent content creators. It has, at least in the political sphere where we are, it favors the TED Talks of the world, the CBS, NBC, MS, and various others that already have millions of people listening to them on the television side, and some on the radio side. So you have about 15 or 20 of those, and out of the top 15 or 20, you have less than 20% are truly independent content types. So this has created a situation where you have people that come into the space. Some do a few shows, some do more than that, one a week or whatever. But if they are trying to monetize, we're not, but if they are trying to monetize on Patreon or somebody of that nature, they need roughly about 5,000 viewers per week, or at least they need viewers that will be attentive to a certain sponsors, a group of sponsors. Now that is the economics of it, if you're into that. This particular individual, basically in about a year, a little over a year, with production costs, etc., and logistics costs, had spent somewhere between $80,000 and $60,000. So that's quite a bit. Equipment, office rentals, editing services, etc. So that the return is very, very low if you're in that monetization situation. Now, on something as YouTube, and we're there, but if we're audio now, but if you're video, you have an opportunity to amass, say, 100,000 subscribers, and that's the name of that game. And depending on, you don't have any control of this, who comes onto the platform to view your video. Now, if you're doing a how to do it situation, like you're repairing something or showing how to do something electronic or cutting a chicken or whatever you're doing, that enhances the number of viewers that will come to see you there. But if you're doing political programs, sheer political program, unless you're on the ultra-right wing, you normally don't get as many viewers. And on situations such as the impeachment saga that's going on now, you're not going to get as many viewers because the national commercial broadcasts operations are covering it, and covering it well. On the quality of that cover, that's sometimes very suspect, but nonetheless they're covering it, and they eat up a lot of bandwidth. Same thing with when you have the debates that at one time were, when Jerry and I started doing, were covered by the League of Women Voters, and therefore we could cover this and make commentary, etc. But now you have ABC, NBC, MSNBC, whomever, national public radio, public TV, Politico. That's a newer combination. But anyway, those people are sponsoring debates, and since they are sponsoring the debates there, and the commercial stockholders, we'll call them, stakeholders have commercials are doing breaks in the debates. In other words, if you're debating Medicare for all, here comes the insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, etc., that are trying to present their side, and you have the candidates trying to present their side, and some of these candidates represent the same people. Like the man from Facebook, known as Little Petey, is one of those characters out there that is presenting a corporate point of view. And you have various others. Bloomberg, well, actually, Mike Bloomberg, yes, you'd expect that, a corporate point of view from him. And you have Tom Steyer, who is presenting more of a quote-unquote middle of the road, and various other candidates there that are out there. And then you have Bernie and Liz Warren, that Medicare for all. Liz Warren's trying to slip away from that, but she's fallen in the polls. And some fear that Bernie could, as they say, win the big enchilada, or whatever you want to call it these days, the curry, chicken. Anyway, the situation is that, and the Democratic Party itself, we don't want to forget about them, have it set up in such a way. We'll have Carl Rove here. We missed him last week, talking about a brokered convention. That's what it's called. And what are the chances of a brokered convention? That way, basically, after the first ballot, and particularly on a second and third ballot, the powers to be, that's the so-called superdelegates, run there, and they can nominate whomever they want. I'll spend a little bit of time on the various machinations that have happened. Last week on Friday Java, we announced, was on the weekly, well, anyway, the assassination of General Soleimani. Well, he was assassinated, he was buried, and roughly 100 people were killed while his coffin was paraded through various cities in Iraq and Iran. And that situation kind of passed. the Iranians attacked some military outposts, but according to the military, very few people were, no people were actually killed. They received band-aids or anything of that nature. Some automobiles, whatever, were destroyed, parking lots, etc. Well, that sort of got that. DJ Trump said, well, this is the end of that. The Iranians said, this is the end of our involvement. The militias that are partners there, they are not patsies. They are partners with the Iranians. Said they're not finished with it. Well, we'll see in the next few days what happens with that situation. It's ongoing, as it was from the very beginning, and there was a little bit of reaction from the markets in various countries. Price of petrol temporarily went up, and it's stabilized. I haven't checked it today yet, but anyway, nonetheless, we'll have that on the Numbers Man show. We'll talk about that in the job numbers that'll be coming out later today. Lots of talk about that. The Pew people have a new survey on what the people think about the economy. There's other information where consumers are in the economy as we go to that. But that's the global situation. And that this little thing was played up, of course, by the BBC and the American networks. Big deal there. Other parts of the world, not such a big deal. And this is where organizations like WBR radio station, internet station, we play in that, the Boston Red Network, we covered a little bit differently. We'll basically tell you that it's, at this point in time, zero-sum operation. No one is moving forward, but then we created a new crisis. A Ukrainian aircraft explodes, the engine explodes or whatever, and 70 people are killed. Everybody aboard the thing was killed. About 70 of those were Canadian citizens were killed in this aircraft. Evidently, they were trying to get out of there on a low-cost flyer. So that aircraft was bound for Kiev. It was Ukrainian. And from Kiev, they could go to Toronto. So you had a lot of Iranian expatriates on the airplane. But now comes the controversy. It was announced in Ottawa today that by Justin Trudeau, he's the Prime Minister of Canada, that there was evidence that missiles had actually hit it by mistake there as it took off. Well, that's one of these balls in the air. They've run that situation before. As most people now know from the history, the Canadians, from the history going back to Vietnam, the Australians and various others, have been partners of the U.S. in various schemes, nefarious schemes. And you have some of these other people unnamed that supposedly said that they saw flares or whatever. Anyway, it's on the investigation. The Iranians outflanked them in that they invited the Canadians. Canadians, incidentally, do not have a counselor with Tehran. But they have been invited there, and they've sent their people there, and the Ukrainians are there. They'll look at the accident sites, check for bodies, get DNA, whatever they need to do there. And their aeronautic people will be there. And various others will be showing up before this is over. Whether or not the so-called black boxes are examined by third parties, the Iranians are responsible for that. Generally how it goes is an international protocol. Usually it would go to the Netherlands perhaps, or to Paris or wherever, that these black boxes would be analyzed. And since it's a Boeing aircraft, it would possibly involve Boeings. But Boeings, as we call it in Seattle, I used to live in Seattle, Boeings has been a disgrace. Emails came out that many of the workers at Boeings had, with the exception of management, had no confidence in the protocols that they were doing there. The management was bragging about getting it out the door as quick as they could, but the pilots had not been properly trained on the new software. So that would kind of preclude them. Now, this was not the 337 MAX, but it was a 337, the Boeing's company coming in. So you basically have a snake pit, Time will tell as far as that situation is concerned, how it will play itself out. The big story last week, wasting a lot of time, money, etc. And on the impeachment front, well, Nancy Pelosi said she will transmit those 2 articles to the Senate. She has to do that, I assume, next week or whatever. And McConnell said he wants to get on with the show, so to speak. And the Senate basically will run a pro forma kangaroo court. They will set up, and the House will have their managers there. They will make the arguments. And whether or not any witnesses will be called, who knows? Maybe they won't. And the whole thing will end with a verdict, supposedly now, that DJ Trump will get to stick around for the election later this year in November. And that will be basically that. That's one of these situations that will be resolved. Period. Maybe. And that's one of the things when you have these international global situations, anything can pop up overnight in any place in the world, the way this operation is set up here. The trade struggle between China and the U.S., the chief Chinese negotiator, one of the premiers, will be in Washington next week, and they will assign the phase 1, they call it. And China will get some relief on these so-called sanctions, which are is nothing more than economic violence. And the U.S., they will buy more pork, soybeans, whatever, supposedly. And that will be the end of that story right there. And the Congress will get on with its normal business. They still have the Canada, Mexico, U.S. trade agreement. Basically recap the NAFTA. And what happens with it, well, we don't know. So that will be it. And at the same time, there's struggles in Mississippi. Some prisoners were killed, or inmates. We don't have prisoners there because of inadequate staffing at the various prisons in the very red state, we don't usually call that, backward state of Mississippi. Money has not been appropriated to the corrections budget in many years. It has not been upped. So there are institutions that run down, and the staffs are understaffed. That's one of the reasons for these situations, that you had massive rebellion by the inmates in the Mississippi system. So that's one of the things that have been rocking around here. And at the same time, you're starting to see some layoffs. We'll talk more about this on Numbers, Man, the macroeconomics program. At places like Caterpillar, and also at other places like the Mack Truck Organization. A few hundred workers here and a few hundred workers there. You're seeing a lot of that happen. It's sort of like we saw with the ADP job report that came out, that jobs were created by small businesses. So in other words, you're getting a dichotomy going here between corporate America, small business America, and that's what we need to talk more about. So these are some of the things that are coming up. Let me get to the Washington Post here, and we'll get Facebook in here. We'll find Uncle Carl and a few other little things in here. Basic big headline in the Post was U.S. and Iran back away from immediate conflict. Well, yeah, we just reported that, just going through U.S. and Iran step back, but underlying tensions remain, a sub situation there. So again, they kind of lay down some things here that had happened with frigates in various places in the Gulf of Mexico. Anyway, nothing spectacularly new there. Period. And the impeachment thing, we already covered that. Old man McConnell is there, barring now additional members to defense to Trump's impeachment defense team. They have expressed concern to the president that it would be a mistake to add lawmakers to the team. Well, we'll see how all that works out. I had not seen that. We probably will have more there. E.J. Dionne, we'll get him tomorrow night. Hey, Republicans, demagoguery want to hide Trump's incoherence. Well, we'll see on that one also. But before we do that, let's just throw in one little thing on cancer rates here, since we've been concerned primarily with prostate cancer. But anyway, cancer rates post biggest 1 year drop ever, a 2.2% decline in 2017, part of a long-term decrease in mortality. Cancer deaths in the U.S. fell 2.2% in 2017, biggest single year drop. That's for the American Cancer Society. Declines in mortality rates for lung cancer had accelerated in recent years in response to new treatments. Falling smoking rates. That's Rebecca Siegel, lead author of the Cancer Statistics 2020. We'll dive a little deeper into that one a little bit later. Improvements in 2017, the most recent year for which the data is available, is a part of a long-term drop in cancer mortality that reflects to a large extent the smoking downturn since the peak in 1991. Cancer deaths have fallen 29%, which translates into 2.9 million fewer deaths. Neil Sharpless, he's director of the National Cancer Institute, which was not involved in the report, said the data reinforces that we are making steady progress on cancer. He predicted the mortality rates will continue to fall as we get better at using these therapies there, and one of them is the action of molecule key to cancer growth. Anyway, these various kinds of therapies, so-called targeted therapies that they now have out there based upon genes and other things. The Cancer Society projected 1.8 million new cases of cancer in the U.S. this year, more than 606,000 deaths. Cancer is the second leading cause of death after heart disease in both men and women. It's the number one cause in many states amongst Latinos and Asian Americans and people younger than 80. Cancer rates defined as deaths per 100,000 people. Lung cancer, the leading cause of deaths, accounting for 1 in 4. Any change has a large effect there, according to Siegel again. She described gains against lung cancer against another deadly cancer, melanoma, are exciting. She added this news this year is mixed because slow progress against colorectal, breast, and prostate cancer, which we've had. The cancers often can be detected earlier by screening. Report says substantial racial and geographic disparities remain high in preventable cancers such as cervical cancer. The 5-year survival rate for all cancers diagnosed from 2009 through 2015 was 67%, 68% for Europeans, 62% for African Americans. What is that? A 6% difference there. This is the 5-year survival rate. In recent years, melanoma has showed the biggest mortality rate drop of any cancer. That's skin cancer, incidentally, primarily. Immune therapy there has helped. 1-year survival rates for patients with advanced melanoma rose from 42% in 2018-2010 to 55% between 13 and 15. Also striking, Siegel said, amongst those 65 and older, that has the rate for melanoma has dropped 5 to 6% annually. Meanwhile, lung cancer death rates have dropped by 51% since 1990 in men, and by 26% since 2002 in women, with a more rapid progress in recent years. For men, the decline in death rates been up from 3% per year during the 2008-2013 period to 5% annually, while in the 5-year period for women, decrease accelerated from 2 to 4%. Noted that lung cancer cases are diagnosed most at an advanced stage, which is why new therapies are designed to treat them. And percentage of adults who smoke in the U.S., of course, has dropped. For example, portion fell from 21% to 13.7% there. And that is it. It's online at the American Cancer Association, so that takes care of that situation. Let's move on to Facebook. and their situation here with their ads, political ads. Facebook won't limit political ads. Targeting or stop false claims. On the new rules there, the changes were announced on Thursday. Users to exercise control over more ads they see. Facebook defied public calls to adopt significant limits, such as what Twitter has done in political ads ahead for the 2020 election, and instead opting to introduce new changes that allow users to control more ads, putting the illness on users. The company's new rules will continue to allow politicians to make false claims in their paid ad posts, preserve the powerful yet controversial targeting tools that have long helped Democrats and Republicans deliver messages to narrow segments of the audience. Pressure to rethink its approach to political ads came from a wide array of digital experts and privacy advocates, as well as some of the workers at Facebook. They argue that the company's policy coerce the American electorate and expose users to serious risks involving disinformation, virtual disinformation, which while malicious actors could play to promote the site. And Facebook said it would address those concerns by giving users a choice to see fewer ads. They don't say none. On social issues, it's planned to roll out in the summer. And users could also choose to stop seeing ads from campaigns and other entities, including businesses that target them using custom lists and data such as their email address. In the blog post, we'll get to that probably on the week that was. The Rob Leffer, I suppose I pronounced his name, he's Facebook Director of Product Management for Ads, wrote that the company is not deaf to criticism. Well, that's... Anyway, Facebook said it's apart from Silicon Valley peers, Google and Twitter, which include major changes last year in response to prolonged outcries over the capacity to tailor narrow messages called targeting. The Trump re-election campaign helped crystallize the changes after his team ran false ads about 2020 hopeful Joe Biden. Facebook and Google refused to take the ad down about the former president, sparking a wild outcry. Thus, Twitter, the favorite location for DJ Trump, banned all political advertisements from candidates' election issues such as abortion, etc. That's according to Jack Dorsey. He's the chief executive there. Opted to preserve, that's Google, political advertising, including certain targeting capabilities, but the company limited some of the more precise tools for reaching specific users. Period there, and also preserved its own policy against fact-checking political ads on services, including YouTube. Generally, Facebook advertising tools allow users to tailor messages to a list of individual voters to small groups based on characteristics such as age, education, zip codes, income, relationship status, interests, political leanings. Most powerfully, Facebook also allows the creation of custom audience base based on lists of individuals, for example, who donate to a cause. Visit a website that Facebook tracks. You have to use the GoDuck and Tor to get around in Facebook. Anyway, that's the Facebook situation there. And this was old Zuckerberg defending the technology. He was figuring to run for president. But he's got little Petey to run. Let's see what's the date on this one. Zuckerberg says in a interview he fears a corrosion of truth, but defends allowing politicians to lie. That's the headline here in the Post. And anyway, this is 17th of October. Back to anyway, this is old news. We won't get into old news here. This is a good time to segue to Uncle Carl Rove. This is Uncle Carl writing last year in the this year, the second, ready for a contested convention. He called the Wall Street Journal. The time for the annual prediction column. We didn't want to miss that. I am chastised by my many 2019 Oscar picks, 0 for 4, which leaves me with a 15.5 correct forecast and a 9.5 and 9.5 wrong 1 year to be settled. As predicted, the House impeached Trump, barring a zombie. The Senate won't convict. Excuse me. Okay. But still play out. Congressional Democrats united sprint on health care, including a Medicare for all and prescription drug pricing, and the Green New Deal. Apocalypse, that's what he said. Anyway, V.I. Putin kept the pressure in Ukraine, expanding Russia's military presence in Syria, Iranian-backed militias. This is before the assassination of General Soleimani. Anyway, stepped up attacks on northern Israel. China pledged more purchases from the U.S. on tariffs. And negotiated U.S. economy will grow likely be less than 2.5%. Mueller cleared the Trump campaign of conspiring with Russia, though he also delivered something big. He said that he could not exonerate the president for obstruction of justice, nor could he do anything about it. Trump's legal troubles over Michael Cohen's use of corporate funds, campaign funds for hush money payments, continues in the Manhattan District Attorney and the House Finance Services Committee. That's where Auntie Waters is, an oversight, subpoenaed Trump companies' financial records, while the number of Democrats running reached my prediction of 20. I said Joe Biden won. That was, I was thinking, I was half right. Liz Warren, Bernie Sanders would be atop the field. Beto O'Rourke was a shiny new toy, but as a Christmas, such toys often have a short half-life. Trump's approval ratings, I'll study with Clear Channel average there, Clear Politics average, most of 219, hovering within 2 points, within a point or two this week at 44.5 mark, while his strong disapproval numbers are in the high 40s, 44%. That's a Wall Street NBC poll. Speaker Pelosi's favorability is not 20 points below Trump, as I predicted, but less than 5% on the average. That's always lower there. Let's pass over, please. Best Picture Actress, Oscar for Clint Eastwood. Bradley Cooper, and Alabama's national champion. I got that right. Pat Mahomes would be the National Football League's most valuable player. So what about 2020? Well, he goes to John Durham here, who is probing the origins of the Federal Bureau of Investigation 2016 investigation of the Trump campaign. Will find the Obama administration acted inappropriate, including hyping the Steele dossier. Back to that. And he also says here that little Petey will win Iowa, but no Democrat arrives at the convention with majority. The nomination requires delegates switching sides after the initial first vote or second vote, where superdelegates are permitted to pick. I pick Biden to win, but I'll take the field if I could, because Democrats are concentrated in California and New York. Trump's trails in the popular vote. Trump wins Florida, Ohio, now redder. And here's in play. Iowa swings Democratic. That's an interesting situation when I first read this. Trump does better than in 2016 amongst African American and Latino votes. He could gain, according to our model, 1 or 2 points. Maybe, maybe not. The election comes down to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Trump must win at least 2 of them. They are settled by a wide margin than the 77,744 votes of the 13,094.91. These are blue state there. The blue wall states are cast in the 2016 victory, depending on Trump's discipline. Who the nominees, who the Democrats nominate. If Biden, Trump has an uphill battle, but if not, the president wins. So that's the prevailing wisdom of Uncle Carl Rove. The election will come down to, well, we already talked about that. Well, Michigan is now trending more blue Then before Pennsylvania being a command and control state be very interesting. Incidentally, a study out by the Philly Fed, we'll talk about that on the Numbers Man. Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, including states, are not performing as well. Anyway, Republicans keep the Senate, Democrats keep the House, both with smaller margins. No recession in 2020. We disagree with him on that. There's always a possibility of recession, but gross domestic product will rise less than 2.3%, with job growth and wages up for most workers than supervisors. U.S. carbon emissions drop. Most Paris Climate Accord signatories failed to meet their targets, and China and India's emissions keep growing. That's what Uncle Carl had to say on the 2nd of January. Now let's move on here, and let's see if we can. We don't have it here. I thought we did. Our friends from the University of Virginia. Don't see them up here right now. We'll have to go back here. If not, we'll play hopscotch with it. Let me take a break here. WBIN Radio. This is Boston Red in the Jerry Pippin Memorial Broadcast Booth, and we'll have to get the people from University of Virginia on the week that was. We recorded, but the recorder was not on. Anyway, that happened. Nonetheless, we're on the 10th of January 2000. Good day.